Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of everyone's favorite show, Form Check Friday. So what we do here is we take user submitted videos. If you're interested in getting your video into Form Check Friday onto the screen behind me, go ahead and submit it to formcheckfriday@gmail.com. No other email address because it will not make it there. Submit to formcheckfriday@gmail.com for your chance to be put up on the big screen and picked apart by yours truly. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna toss up some videos, we're gonna take a look at them, and try to give some of these lifters a little bit of advice on how they can be more efficient, how they can potentially explore their technique development, and hopefully become better lifters with that. So we're gonna dive right into it, and our first submission here comes from Tyler Tuck. So he says he's currently working on a 5-3-1 program. This is his first 5+ set at the end of one of his days, and his first meet isn't until late this year. I'm gonna preemptively turn that speaker off because things are about to get wild. Let's see what we got here. Okay, I'll put myself a little smaller and let's take a look. So that hopped right into it. We'll make sure we catch this first rep. All right. Cool. So I have a feeling this is going to be a lot of reps. It's a 5+, so that means we're doing an AMRAP here, or a set of as many reps as possible, for those who might not be familiar with that terminology. Still looking pretty easy. I think he's got like 5 more in there. Well, prove me wrong. The biggest thing here, I think, is, and let's maybe go, there we go. So when we're starting a rep, and especially with, this looks like a deadlift bar, correct me if I'm wrong, but what I'd like to see is for you to pull the slack out of the bar a little bit better. Looks like right now we're kind of setting up, and then there's this like jolt where we're not fully set. We haven't pulled the slack out of the bar before it leaves the floor, so when you go to pull, we're pulling the slack out of the bar at the same instant as we're pulling, and we can see those hips rise a little bit. And let's see if I can get my, there we go. So we're seeing these hips come up just a little bit, the knees go back a little bit, and this back is rounding out just a little bit more than the start position. So what I'd like to see is for you to try to maintain this position more so by making sure that when you set into this position, we're actively engaging, pulling the lats on, we're limiting this forward knee travel. A lot of times when people pull their butts down, what happens is it pushes everything forward. What should happen when you pull your butt down is we should just pull this into more extension, and those knees should be stopped from where they are. So let's see how this sort of last little bit of pulling yourself in goes. So we can see those knees come forward, and then at a certain point the butt sinks more. But as we start pulling, we kind of revert out of that position. So we're not holding our initial position well enough, and that's gonna be a little bit contributory to losing this back position worse and to seeing those hips shoot up more when we are dealing with heavier loads. So all in all, I think really good sound mechanics. This isn't a huge big deal, but I would put some time into learning to pull the slack out of the bar, learning to set yourself with more tension before you initiate that sort of leg drive, that push off the floor in the initial phase of the movement. So that would be my advice there, Tyler. Hopefully that helps, man, and good luck with your upcoming meet later this year. Our next clip is gonna come from Stephen Helper. Now let's see if I can pull this one up. Okay, it's a file, it's over here. And let's see if he's got an email that came with it. If I can pull any, no, there's no context in there. So, all right, Stephen, let us take a look. So it looks like we're doing some squats. Looks like a pretty decent home gym setup here. Nice sturdy rack, bolted down platform. Looks good to me. Good, I like the sort of initial hip break. You can see he kind of pushes back, eases into the hinge a little bit, which I really like. He's fairly cautious into that bottom position, which I think is good. He's getting depth, but just enough depth. He's not bottoming out and smacking into the bottom. I actually don't think that I really see anything to pick out or to pick on with these squats here. So even the walkout, you can see he unracks, he gets stable, 1 step, 2 step, adjusts for width, and he's set. So he's not wasting any time or energy with the walkout, which is good. That's something that I often like to see, and often will give people crap for if they're not doing correctly. So let's watch this a little bit slower and see how he kind of eases back into, so there's a bit of a brace there, like an up and down kind of brace. And I mean, there might be a case to be made for not seeing that sort of rise and set in the ribs, but that's very, very minor. So you can see he kind of, watch right here in his hips, how he sort of eases back into that, pushes back into his hips, and then sits straight down. So it's this sort of easing back into the hips, and then sort of stopping where the knees track right about here. So you can see the knees don't really track any further forward from this point. Oops, from this point in the squat, which is again something that I usually like to see. So pushing back into the hips, maybe a tiny bit of knee tracking forward at the bottom there, but I don't think that's an issue. And then a good smooth ascent. We're not seeing the hips shoot up behind or anything like that. So really, I think this is more than anything a good example of what a squat should look like. I don't see any issues. Maybe a little bit shy or too hesitant with the depth on this rep here. We might be a little high there. It's kind of hard to tell from this angle, but we could probably push a little further, stretch a little bit more into depth for that. But honestly, my man, these look really, really good. So Stephen Helper, great squats, man. Yeah, maybe a little shy on depth, maybe a little on the line, but squat mechanics are certainly very, very good. So our next one comes from Chris, and this is a squat of some kind. Let me see if I can pull up his email here. Chris. All right, so Chris is 17 years old. He started squatting at the start of this autumn, and he's doing starting strength linear progression right now. He doesn't have any plans to compete, just general strength training, maybe in the future if he finds any competitions in his country. As for the squat, he's worried about his depth. He says he can sometimes feel his knees going too far forwards. Not sure if this is bad, but he's a little bit paranoid about it. And in the video, it's 80 kilos for 3x5, and body weight is around 85 kilos. All right, Chris, I'll get my fat head out of the way, and we're gonna take a look at this squat for you. All right, let us see. So let's start with the walkout here. Just gonna rewind. All right. So good and strong out of the rack, nothing's changing. We're still keeping that sort of set rack position. The walkout was maybe a little stutter stepped, but I don't think it was wasteful. Excellent, man, excellent. Very good. I would say that's definitely depth. That's definitely solid depth. I think you'd be hard pressed to find somebody who's gonna call that depth. A little bit pulled forward on that rep there. So I think there might be some things that we can adjust with this upper back and sort of bar position that might help. I think we could just get a little bit tighter there by doing a couple things, and I'll talk about those in a sec. Yeah, again, a little bit pulled forward by the bar. Cool. So the biggest thing I think that I would like for you to investigate and kind of work on is gonna be what we're doing here. So we'll notice on these later reps, right out of the hole, we get just that little bit kind of pitched forward right there, where we're starting to get pulled forward onto the toes a little bit. And I think it's because what's happening is that your grip is super, super close in here. Your grip is very close to the bar. What I'd like to see is for you to widen your grip out a little bit and pull these elbows more in line with the trunk. So instead of having the elbows back up behind you, which in a lot of cases is gonna protract that shoulder blade right here, we're gonna see this shoulder blade pushed forward. We're gonna see the shoulders sort of elevated, or the shoulder blades elevated and protracted forward, which is gonna create a bit of a disconnect between the upper back and the rest of the trunk. So when we have troubles tying that in, these two sort of segments, if you wanna think about it like that, we see this disconnect and this segment breaks forward. So let's see if we can catch that out of the bottom of this squat. You guys can see right there, we kind of pop forward, that bar pushes us forward. Might even be seeing a little bit of space under the heels as we come up off of those, but you're definitely getting onto the toes there. You can see that bar path kind of shift forward out of the bottom. So I think what a lot of people do is they try to pack their hands in as close as possible, because they think that's just gonna be the tightest way to do it. A lot of people, I think, sort of have this misconception that the tighter the grip is, the tighter the back is. And that may feel that way simply because of some flexibility restrictions more than anything, but I think it limits your ability to do what you want to do with the elbows and subsequently the shoulder blades. So if we widen that grip up a little bit, get those elbows, and I don't want the elbows pulling forward, I want the elbows pulling in towards each other behind you, sort of in more of this plane. I don't necessarily want your elbows in here. I see a lot of people do that too. They kind of jam their elbows forward out of the bottom. So if you see this, yeah, so we're here on the way up. I see a lot of people sort of jam their elbows down in under the bar, and I don't necessarily advocate for that either. But I would like to see these elbows more in line with your trunk and your torso. And I think that would go a long ways towards stabilizing this change in direction out of the bottom, where we're kind of getting caught forward and having a little bit of struggle with that. So that is my advice there, and hopefully that helps you, my man. So that was Chris. We're moving on to Jeffrey. Where are you, Jeffrey? So Jeffrey's email says, "Hey, this is Jeffrey. Thanks for the heads up, man." All right, Jeffrey. What do we got here? We got some conventional deadlifts. All right. So again, not really pulling the slack out of the bar, especially not on subsequent reps after the first one. Let's take a bit of a closer look here. So a really quick setup. I think you could spend more time pulling yourself into position. But the biggest thing I'm seeing here is how far your shoulders are ahead of the bar. And what that's doing is it's just putting a lot of shear through your back, which is making your back sort of compromised position, specifically right here, just below your belt. Now, no flexed back mechanics are not necessarily a higher incidence of injury. I still, every time I critique a rounded back, I want to kind of make sure that I preface it with, this isn't an injury prevention thing. This isn't, oh God, your back is flexing, you're gonna get hurt. This is, your back is flexing because you are too far ahead of the bar. You're probably a little bit on your toes, and it's causing you to be inefficient. That's why I'm critiquing this. So I think if we could pack those shoulder blades down, push your butt back behind the bar, and subsequently your knees will go back, because obviously your humerus here, if this end goes back, this end should go back as well. The weight's gonna get back on your heels a little bit more, and I think that's gonna be a really useful way to initiate your pull instead of being way out here, right? So if we can pull back everything kind of back behind the bar more, pivot back on your heels, get those knees back behind the bar a little bit, push your butt back out behind you a little more, and lock those shoulder blades downwards. Sorry, I'm just scribbling all over there. Lock the shoulder blades down, butt back, knees back, weight back on the heels, and that's gonna put everything in a much better position to be able to kind of take advantage of a little more of a push off the floor. Because right now, if we watch this, we're seeing you really almost having to stiff leg it. We're not seeing a whole lot of knee extension throughout. We're seeing all back extension off the floor and all hip extension, and not really seeing the knee extension contribute until later in the movement. generally speaking, we want to see knee extension contribute more to the initial phase of the movement and a little bit less at lockout. That should be mostly hip extension by the end. But yeah, man, that's what I would have to say about that, Jeffrey. So good luck with that, buddy, and I hope that helps you. Now the last one is an Instagram link we got from William Burney, and he says, my deadlift sucks really bad. So hopefully everybody can see that there. And elbows. Okay, so he's trying to use more leg drive at the start and use less back. I'm just kind of reading through his caption here. All right, let's see it, man. That looks pretty good, actually. Now I don't know if we can, oh, we can kind of pause the Instagram. So right here, we are kind of, again, a little bit forward in terms of the shoulder. Now I don't necessarily want to see the shoulder directly above the bar, because that usually puts us a little bit behind the bar. But what I do want to see is for it to be a little bit back further, because here we have the majority of the shoulder joint in front of the majority of the bar. I'd prefer if there was maybe a little bit more crossover between the two. And I think you're on the right track with kind of what you're trying to cue yourself to do to really start, you know, using more of a push off the floor. And I think the other thing is putting a little bit more focus. I can't rewind, but putting a little bit more focus into, see how he just sort of locked these shoulder blades down. Now I want you guys to watch as he initiates the movement. What happens? One of the first things that happens is those shoulder blades pull forward. So we have to be tighter and more patient with this, because as you start pulling, we're losing those shoulders. So I would say some upper back work. I would say some pause deadlifts. Definitely don't get into the habit of hitching like that at the end when it starts to get tough. Be patient, pull the back through. And yeah, more patience off the floor, because we're seeing the hips kind of shoot up to start too, as opposed to, like I was saying earlier, where we want to kind of contribute a little more knee extension to the initiation of the movement. All in all though, he's got a nice short torso, so I think conventional could be pretty strong for him just based on his leverages here. But I think we need to do a better job of locking the back in kind of as a whole. So not necessarily pulling the shoulder blades back, but just sinking them down your torso and trying to get just a little bit more extension here, excuse me, in the thoracic spine. And I know I got a lot of crap last time for yawning, so I should have made my face big for that one, because I'm so sorry that I yawned last time. Yeah, punks. Yeah, all in all, looks pretty good. Looks pretty good. So yeah, that is it, guys and gals. So thank you very much for tuning in to Form Check Friday. I hope you guys enjoy the series. If you have any questions about anything that I said here, if you have any contributions in terms of things that you saw or thought that would contribute to the discussion in terms of how these lifters can do better, be better, then please go ahead and leave that in the comments below. Leave a like if you liked it, and hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Again, if you want to submit for Form Check Friday, that needs to go to formcheckfriday@gmail.com. So that's it. Y'all, thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you guys next week.